Right, welcome everyone. Nice to see you again. So we are exploring a little bit experientially what is the nature of reality. We see in everyday life. We try to have a good heart and we try to have a certain lifestyle, a certain ethic, and we realize that our mental progress are quite slow, right? That it's actually difficult to uproot our mental affliction, even though we wish to do so and we have great aspiration, we realize it's actually not that easy. And you start, it starts sinking into you that, since I'm here in this thing since beginningless time, there must be some reason. It's not that easy to remove those mental afflictions. So, and I think all of us have a certain level of calm abiding, at least for a few moments here and there. And we can see that we can actually cease the mental affliction due to the power of mental stability. We can freeze our mind so that the mental affliction don't invade our mind for a certain amount of time. But then when we release that concentration, our mind gets invaded like before by, our worry, our concern, and things like that. So we see it's just a temporary solution. So from Buddha's point of view, to remove this mental affliction from the root, we have to realize selflessness or emptiness. And then when one looks into it, is actually quite complex, selflessness. There's many ways of explaining it, and there's many levels of selflessness. And there's many master that explains it quite differently. If you look at the Dzogchen approach or the Kagyu Mahamudra or Lama Tsongkhapa's presentation, they each one have quite their own specificity. And nowadays, we're quite exposed to all these different approaches because we can read and the master from all these traditions come around. So we're quite exposed, to all these different approaches. So one of the specificity of Lama Tsongkhapa is to recognize the object of refutation. So you see, to deconstruct things, to not find the A, to not find the book, to not find the I, to not find the body, not find the mind, that's not that difficult, right? So, for example, Nagarjuna was a great master to deconstruct everything and to show how everything is dependent arising, how one thing depends on other thing, that everything depends on each other. So Lama Tsongkhapa's concern with that approach was that is actually, you see, if you deconstruct things, then how does it function conventionally, right? So you see, if you deconstruct everything, why would things exist? You know, how do you maintain conventional existence? So for him, if you negate too much, you see, if you deconstruct too much, or you don't know what you deconstruct, you're left with nothing, right? So for him, it was important to be able to deconstruct, but that there's something left. And that's cause and effect in the conventional world, right? So you deconstruct something, but you don't deconstruct existence, right? You deconstruct inherent existence. So he was very careful to add that little bit. You see, you don't deconstruct existence, you don't deconstruct reality, you deconstruct inherent existence. You know, that's the thing that is not there. And that actually experientially is very difficult to do. Even Lama Tsongkhapa recognized, you know, it's only once you have a direct experience of emptiness that you can experientially distinguish inherent existence from existence. So this is actually a very advanced thing to be able to do that experientially. But for him, it was actually important to be able to do that at least intellectually. You see, to be intellectually clear when you meditate that what you negate is inherent existence, and then the emptiness that the space like emptiness that you are in when you don't find this inherent existence is the absence of inherent existence, is not the absence of existence. So for him, that was very important. And then when you come out of that non-finding of inherent existence, you're left with conventional reality, and things exist as mere name or like a mirage, you know? So for him, and mere name doesn't mean that things are just words, right? So things are merely labeled by the mind, but they are not words. There's something more than that, you see? And that's why Lama Tsongkhapa put emphasis on this image, you know, things exist like a rainbow, like a mirage, like a dream, you know, because they give some kind of taste. Something is not there, yet it appears, right? So for Lama Tsongkhapa, the difficult point in meditating on emptiness is to figure out what is empty. You see, what is inherent existence? The rest is very easy. You see, you don't find it in its part, you don't find, it's not the collection of its part, and it's not separate. So that's quite easy. To get to emptiness is not difficult. What's difficult is to actually taste or figure out what actually is empty. You know, what is inherent existence? Experientially, you have to try to figure out what is this inherent existence that I gloss over reality, that I project onto reality. And that's the challenge with Lama Tsongkhapa's approach. Also, another thing, often in the other yogis tradition, you meditate mostly on the emptiness of the mind, right? In Lama Tsongkhapa's approach, which is based on Nagarjuna, Chandrakirti, Aryadeva, and so forth. Is that so you understand intellectually the emptiness first on outer object. So, you know, on the chariot or on the A, on the book and so forth. But experientially, where you actually get the first taste of it is on the emptiness of the I. Right? Where actually you get the experience first in a, how to say, where it has the deepest impact on you is when you relate it to yourself. And you realize that the self that you have constructed, your self-image, your sense of I, you see this inherent I, is actually not there. Right? So when you have that experience, it has really a profound impact on how you relate to yourself and how yourself relate to the world. And then once you have that experience, it's very easy to, how to say, to apply to everything. No? So the biggest impact seems to be, you see, this experience that the I, the inherent I, is not there at all. So now I would like to go back to when we look at an A, you see, so there's the base, the 3 lines, and there's the merely labeled A on these 3 lines. And then is the inherent A. You see, when you turn your head and you look on a piece of paper, automatically there seems to be A there, right? So is to be able to chew over, to understand how inherent existence exists. You see, what is inherent existence? You see, so the A seems to exist independent of its base and independent of you imputing it. It's very interesting when you look at texts from a script that you haven't learned, like Arabic or Chinese, or if you don't know Tibetan. You see, so you look the script and it doesn't convey any meaning at all. Right? It's like that. What, you know, how can somebody understand something like that? You know, for you, it's completely gibberish, right? No meaning, no word, nothing comes to your mind at all. It's just lines, right? I found Arabic beautiful. You know, I'm completely amazed how beautiful that language is, but it doesn't convey any meaning at all. You know, I just see it as drawings, you know, kind of like that. Yet when we see something in English, it's impossible for us just to see it as drawings. The meaning comes straight at us. You see, it's almost, you have no choice when you see 3 bars together that it's an A. You don't see 3 bars together, right? Automatically, it springs from the paper into your mind. And then when you look at a book, you see, we have books around, and the book appear to exist as independent of its page. You see, there's a bookness that is that we gloss over, that seems to be independent from the collection of its space, of its page, and you mind imputing it book. You know, there's a bookness there. And that's what the object of refutation is, right? This bookness. Also, it's quite interesting. You see, if you take the example of a book in a language that you don't know, so it's just scripts on a piece of paper. So is that a book? Because isn't the book also all what is written in it, all the ideas, all the you know, the novel or the ideas expressed in the book, right? Can you have a book without its content, its meaning, right? Otherwise, it's just paper and ink. And then can you have the idea expressed in a book independent from the page and the script? Right? So you see, these two things that exist completely interdependently. You cannot have actually one without the other. And then book is merely designated by the mind on these two things together, right? The meaning expressed in the book, and then the script and the paper. But when we look at a book, it appears independent from that. So in daily life is actually useful if from time to time, you know, if you sit with a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, you know, and you look at an object and you see how for you it appears independent from its part, independent from you labeling it, and so to recognize the object of refutation, like it's called philosophically, to recognize what is not there. Same thing, you look at a person, right? So that person, you say his or her name, and it appears to exist there objectively, you know, independent from his or her body, collection of part, independent from his or her thought, image, character, personality, and so forth. It seems to be a person there that is independent from all that, and independent from you imputing the name on that person. So when you make that exercise, you know, you don't need to sit in meditation necessarily. You can relax and, you know, sit outside and look at something and reflect like that. And you start seeing that objects and people are much richer or much more complex than the way they appear. That reality, when you look at it from this point of view of interdependence, you see, things are much more beautiful and complex than they appear. So usually one says there's three approach or three way to further our insight into reality, right? So one approach is to see what is empty, to see how we isolate things from their parts and from the labeling. You see how things appear independent or inherent. Inherent, you see, means independent. So independent from its parts, independent from the mind labeling it. You know? So to realize, to look at object and people and see how we see them as independent. So that's one approach. And then the second approach is to see how things are merely labeled by the mind, right? So how, based on the 3 strokes, we label A. How on the collections of part, we label book. How on the collection of parts, we label car. How on the collection of part, we leave John or Mary or whatever, right? So the person, you see, our friend, our partner, our dog, you know, we impute a name, but on what do we impute that name? So for a person, you see, is often we think, oh, I impute the name on that body. But actually there's 5 aggregates, right? So you have to imagine, oh, there's a stream of consciousness and there's thoughts, emotion, memory. There's you see, a person is much more complex, and that person has sensation, feeling, discernment, and all these things. And that happens. So then the person, you know, Mary, for example, well, it's much more complex than just the Mary I see. You know, that person is much richer, is much more complex. And Mary is merely imputed on that collection of ever-changing body, thought, emotion, views of life, and so forth. So there's no concrete Mary there, right? Mary is merely imputed on that collections of body-mind that is ever-changing, that is ever beautiful. But then when you stop thinking about that, spontaneously there's again a Mary there from her own side. And then the third way to reflect on that is to use the similes, right? So everything is like a mirage, like a dream, like a rainbow, and so forth. So this image convey a feeling. You see that things are there, but they are not really there objectively. They are interdependent. So these are the 3 ways. So if you read a little bit the transcript of Lama Zopa Rinpoche's teaching, so he often leads meditation on one of these 3 approach, right? So he advises us, if we go for a walk, you know, so you reflect, you know, on one of these 3 things. Either everything is like a dream, mirage, you know, things appear to be there, but it's like I'm in a dream, you know, they are there, but at the same time it's not there. Or you reflect how the ground you walk on is mainly labeled by the mind. On the gravel and tar, we label road, right? And then on the collection of parts that perform the function of being able to be driven, we label car, you know. But and then sometimes you reflect, oh, everything appears solidly out there, but actually if I look for the car, it's none of the parts of the car, nor the collection, nor separate. So you focus more on the emptiness of how everything appeared to you. The inherent existence is not there. So to make progress to bring our life closer to reality is we have to use this approach in everyday life. You see, it's not enough just to meditate on the cushion. You have to actually bring it in your everyday life by reflecting again and again how things are not inherently existent, or how they are merely labeled, and how they are like a dream. So I found it very useful to, you see, when I wash my dishes or I go for a walk, or I like some people automatically recite a mantra. You know, they're so habituated to recite a mantra when they have a little bit free time, so they recite the mantra, right? So you can do same thing with emptiness. You see, as soon as you have a little bit of free time, you reflect on emptiness, you know. So you can also use the mantra at the same time. You see, it doesn't mean that you cannot recite the mantra, but to have this habit of focusing on emptiness. Because the root cause of our mental affliction is there, you see. Unless we taste a little bit of how things really exist, our mental affliction would not go away. So Kandrila recently, I went to Portland and I listened to her talk, and she seems very much to emphasize that. He says, you see, doing prayers, doing sadhanas, all these things, you know, if you don't experience emptiness, it's not liberating. You know, even having a good heart, being compassionate, all these things, if you don't realize emptiness, you cannot become free. And she says, once you have an experience of emptiness, then love, compassion spontaneously arise, right? Because you see how people are afflicted and confused because they don't see reality. You know, it's not that they are bad people, it's simply they don't see reality, and because of that, they suffer in cyclic existence. So I think emptiness is challenging, it's complex to understand. But when you taste it a little bit, you see how powerful it is to remove our fears, our grasping, our aversion, and so forth. So today I would like in the meditation to introduce a new thing. You see, so after we do the calm abiding on the conventional nature of the mind, I would like that you observe how the I exists. You see, so for us, we have the sense of I, me. And that sense is valid. You see, not only do we exist now, not only have we existed yesterday, we have existed as a child, we existed our past life, we have always existed. Me, I have always existed. And me, I will always exist. Me, I will reach enlightenment. So apart when we are unconscious, we always have a sense of I. You see, as soon as you're conscious, you can say, I'm conscious. You know, as soon as you awake, there's a me that is awake. So this I, me, or self has different way of appearing. So some sense of I are valid and some sense of I are invalid. And that's where the difficulty arises, is that sometimes you have a sense of I that is correct, that is valid. And then at other time, it's an exaggeration. At other time, it appears like the A on the 3 strokes, it appears existing from its own side, objectively, inherently. And that sense of I, that's the one that doesn't exist. That's the one that is empty. That's an exaggeration. So for us, ordinary being, we have the I, the sense of I, appear in 2 ways, either correct or incorrect. Either it's so one way to distinguish the two, one is called the general I or the conventional I. So it's the sense of I we have, for example, when you do shine, when you don't have a strong sense of I, or when your mind is drifting about and you don't have a really strong sense of I, or you just do something, you know, you wash your dishes, or you go for a walk, and you say, oh, I'm going shopping, do you need anything? So there's a very light sense of I that is not the inherent sense of I. So these are the 2 ways. I would say that most of the time, what we experience is a correct sense of I, the general I or the conventional I. And then from time to time, within that sense of I, the I becomes stronger. He bubbles up, you see, and he becomes more concrete, more solid. And said, oh, no, that's my opinion. That's how I feel. That's what I'm going to do. And so he becomes more solid, right? And it's that solid sense of I that is empty, right? So we have these 2 sense of I throughout our day. We have this correct sense of I, the general I, and then within that, sometimes the inherent I bubbles up, particularly when there are strong emotions, right? So even though he's there subliminally all the time, there are conditions in our everyday life that makes him become more obvious, right? Like when we have strong emotions. So now, when we are able to recognize this sense of I, so you see this inherent I, this solid sense of I appear in different way. So like, let's say anger, you can have some just a little irritability, you know, a little bit irritated, and then it can be stronger, and can be very explosive, right? So there's many degrees in which the emotion of anger can arise, right? So same thing with the inherent existent I. It can be there subliminally, or it can be a little bit obvious, it can be stronger, stronger, and then very obvious when you are afraid or when you're upset or something like that. But it's not that it only manifests when you're upset or when you have fear. It's there in a less obvious way, you know, in many different degrees. So once you're able to recognize this inner existent I, you see it is there most of the time in different degrees. You see, you don't need to be very angry for the inner I to appear. So now when you're able to recognize the inner existent I, and then you see that it's not there, right? It's not in any part of the body, in any part of the mind, not outside. So you go in that space where is the absence of this I. And then, so the absence of the I is a mere absence of the I. There's nothing else. It's just the absence of that I. Then the moment you're not focusing anymore on the absence of the I, you discover a new way the I exists. The I exists as a mere imputation on the body and mind. Right? So for a person that has meditated on emptiness correctly, that person has three ways that the I appear. Either the general I, so the general I is an I that is not the inherent I and not the merely labeled I. Right? So it's just a general sense of I. And then within that, then is the inherent existent I that bubbles up. And then you don't find this inherent I. And then when you come out of that insight in the absence of the I, inherent existent I, say, but how do I exist? As a mere designation on the collection of this body and mind. As a mere name, as a mere imputation. So there, what needs to happen is an observation throughout your day. How do I feel? Who am I? You know, how is my sense of I at this and that moment? How do I feel? Who am I? You see? And then you start saying, oh, either is general I, you know, an I that is not inherently existent, and an I that is not merely labeled. Or is the inherent I, the one that appears to exist from his own side, that is more than just an imputation. And then when you don't find that, you realize, oh, there's another sense of I. The I is merely labeled on the body and mind. There's no I in the body, there's no I in the mind, there's no I separate, yet I exist as a mere imputation on the body and mind. So there's a very light sense of I, a very ethereal sense of I. So where you start that process is in meditation. You see, so after having meditated on calm abiding, on the conventional nature of the mind, then you stop that mind that only focuses on clear and knowing, right? So you relax that and you simply let your mind wander off. You let your normal mind play his game, you know, thinking about, oh, let's have a cup of tea, or let's do this. And then you observe who's the I that wants to have a cup of tea? Who's the I that wants to go here and there? So you observe that I. Is it simply, you see, the conventional I? Is it the inherent I? Or is it merely label I? You see, how does that I appear? So that's the observation you do there. Okay, so we're going to do that now. Maybe 2-3 minutes break if you need to. Then we do Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga. So I think the mind of refuge is something very special. So what do we take refuge in? Basically, you can say it's in enlightenment. So we, ordinary being, oneself, and all living beings, we take refuge in enlightenment. And all the beings which have reached enlightenment, so for example, people which are from a theistic religion, so they take refuge in God. So we as Buddhists, we take refuge in enlightenment and the beings that have reached that enlightenment. So taking refuge is not just mere words, reciting a formula. Taking refuge is like, it's an experience. So in front of this omniscient mind of infinite light, of infinite bliss, of infinite love, compassion. So to that amazing thing, we take refuge. So towards that, we open our heart. Then, of course, we can see many details in that, like Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, Nirmanakaya, or Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. And each one we can elaborate. Or we can focus on someone that for us symbolize this enlightenment, like His Holiness Dalai Lama, or Lama Yeshe, Kyabje Zopa Rinpoche, Khandrola, or whatever, and whoever. But the main thing is to see this enlightenment, to have this representation or idea of enlightenment. And from one's own side, one's heart opens up to that space, to that higher reality. So there's a communication between you and enlightenment, between you and enlightened beings. And then if you want to open it even more in the Mahayana way, so you imagine yourself surrounded by all living beings, and you and all living beings open your heart towards enlightenment. You and all living beings take refuge in enlightenment. And then if you bring in emptiness and dependent rising, so you and all living beings and enlightenment are mainly labeled. It's not solid me, solid living beings, and solid enlightenment. And then if you want to bring a little bit some tantra, So everything is a nature of bliss. You, all living being, light energy bliss, and enlightenment is light energy bliss. Then you can even go to the mainly label enlightenment and mainly label I. And experientially, there's no more duality, subject-object. So you and enlightenment, you and your refuge merge. Oh, I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. By my virtuous actions of giving and so on, may I become a Buddha to benefit all beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. By my virtuous actions of giving and so on, may I become a Buddha to benefit all beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. By my virtuous actions of giving and so on, may I become a Buddha to benefit all beings. So here you imagine receiving the blessing of enlightenment, of the enlightened beings. And then your own body manifests as a light energy body. So for those, whichever deity they practice, they can arise as that deity. And otherwise, they just imagine their own body as a light energy body. And then the next meditation is to open one's heart. You see, there are infinite living beings. And like myself, each one of them want to be happy. So there's no difference between myself, my partner, my child, my dog, my cat, my neighbor, people all over the world. We all same in wanting to be happy. So one opens one's heart and try to feel all living beings like I want to be happy. Each one of them wants to be happy. So try to make your heart grow and encompass all living beings. All the problems that exist in the world comes from being self-centered, and all the happiness that comes in the world until enlightenment comes from being centered onto others, wishing them to be happy and working towards making them happy. So Lama Yeshe used to call this state of mind a totally open heart. May all beings have equanimity, free of attachment and aversion. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings find good rebirth and the bliss of liberation. Then we try to see our environment as pure, nature of bliss and emptiness, or as pure light energy, rainbow. May the ground everywhere be pure, free of roughness and all faults, soft as the palm of a child's hand, smooth as polished blue sapphire. Then we fill all space, all environment with beautiful offerings. May all space with samatha clouds of offering be filled, offerings human and divine, both actual and imagined. So as you recite the mantra, you imagine that the Buddhas, so all infinite numbers of Buddhas, they perceive the offerings that you imagine and it generates bliss in their mind. Om Namo Bhagavate Vajrasaya Mamadana Tadagadaya Adi Samyak Sambuddhaya Tayanda Om Vajavajama Vajama Deva Mahavidya Vajama Bodhicitta Vajama Bodhimandana Savakama avarana vijudana vaja yeso o namo bhagavate vaja samadana namaya ane samyak sambudaya dayanda vaja vaja ma vidya vaja ma bodhicitta vaja ma bodhi mandana santa Savakama avarana vijudana vaja yeso o namo bhagavate vaja Anataganaya Adi Samyatam Buddhaya Tayada Om Vaja Vajama Vajama Buddhaya Mahavidya Vajama Bodhicitta Vajama Bodhi Mananda Sangam Savagama Avarana Vijodana Vajayate. Then in a space in front of you, imagine a pure land of Tushita. So whatever your idea of paradise is, so it says that the ground is very smooth and there are beautiful lakes, wish-granting trees, deer, geese, peaceful animals, and people having picnic, discussing Dharma, or sitting under trees, meditating, and the breeze moves the leaves in the trees and it produces the sounds of teachings, Dharma, insight. And in this beautiful park, there's a celestial mansion made of precious stone and precious material, and yet being transparent. And in the center of this palace sits a Maitreya Buddha, and he's surrounded by Atisha, Lama Tsongkhapa, and many of our teachers. So we can imagine Lama Yeshe and Latu Rinpoche and all these teachers that we have had that passed away. So we can imagine them sitting around Maitreya Buddha. So thinking of Maitreya Buddha, so by doing so, we create the cause to be reborn amongst his disciple when he manifests, turning the wheel of Dharma on this earth. So as you feel when you're in the presence of a holy being like His Holiness, you try to feel now in the presence of Maitreya. And from his innermost mind, subtle mind of clear light, in his heart comes a cloud. And from that clear light mind comes Lama Tsongkhapa, Kelsabje, and Kachubje to the space in front of you in your room. So about one body length in front of you in your room, there's a cloud on which there are 3 thrones on which sits Lama Tsongkhapa, Kelsabje, and Kachubje. So again, you could imagine them as 3 of your gurus, as inseparable from these 3 beings. Like, for example, Lama Yeshe, or sorry, His Holiness, then Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche, sitting in your room with you, or any other 3 lamas. So more important than the visualization is try to feel their presence, their qualities, their joy, bliss, love. You emanate on snow white cloud from the heart of Buddha Maitreya, Savior of 100 Devas, joyful hymn, Losandrapa, all-knowing King of Dharma, with you to her disciple. I beseech you, please come before me. In space, on land, throne, lotus and moon, my kind Guru, smiling with delight, is the supreme field for my faithful mind. Please forever abide and teach us. Your holy mind knows all phenomena. You fluent speech, a sweet melody. For the years of fortunate disciple, your form resplendent with fame's glory. I prostrate to you, who is meaningful to see, hear, and also bring to mind. Pure water and well-arranged flowers, fragrant incense like perfume and more. Clouds of offering, real and imagined, I offer you supreme merit fields. Non-virtues of body, speech, and mind, transgressions of my 3 sets of vows, committed sins beginning last time, all I confess deeply from my heart. In these times of degeneration, you made your life highly meaningful. Renounce all the outwardly console, strive for knowledge and realization. In your extensive accomplishment, I rejoice deeply within my heart. Lama in Dharmakaya's clear sky, from clouds of wisdom and compassion, please rain down vast and profound Dharma upon us fortunate disciples. I dedicate all of these virtues to the Dharma, all living beings, and especially that the heart teachings of Losandrapa remain forever. This ground adorned with perfume and flowers, Mount Meru for world sun and moon. Imagine it and offered as a pure land. May all beings enjoy this pure. I send forth this precious good. I send forth this jewel mandala to you, my precious good. So as we recite Lama Tsongkhapa's mantra, we have this aspiration from our heart to receive his blessing. So reciting the mantra is like a plea, a request so that we opening our heart to Lama Tsongkhapa, Kelsabje Kredjubje, and to all our gurus, so to our opening the heart and their quality, so we receive their blessing, so that the obstacle for our spiritual practice disappear, and then the qualities grow within our mind. Imetsewe te chen chen ris, jime kembe wambo jambe, numbu malu jomze sawela. Ganchen kepe tsugen songka, lozan drapa tu shabla so. Chen raise ye great treasure of objectless compassion. Manjushri, Lord of stainless waste, Vajapani, destroyer of Maras arms, Tsongkhapa crown, jewel of Tibetan sea, Losang Drapa, to you I bring. Then the three thrones absorb upwards into the lotuses. And then Kelsabje and Kedrubje merges into Lama Tsongkhapa. And then Lama Tsongkhapa comes to sit above one's head, facing the same direction as us. So Lama Tsongkhapa is inseparable from His Holiness Dalai Lama, from Lama Yeshe, from Lama Zopa Rinpoche, from Kadrula, and from all our teacher. And then you imagine your central channel is aligned with his central channel. And from his head chakra, there's a white Om, his throat, a red A, and from his heart, a blue Hum. And as we recite this three mantra, you imagine that light energy comes down through his body and blesses your three chakra and cleans your negative karmas of body, speech, and mind. So we take a deep breath. Om. 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 And Lama Tsongkhapa transform into a sphere of light. So the size of a pea. And then you imagine that he enters by the top of your head and blissfully goes down the center of your body. And with each millimeter that he moves, he produces bliss. So very bright, blissful light with all the enlightened qualities. Goes down to your head chakra. And gently to your throat. And to your heart. And then that sphere of light becomes bigger and bigger. And pervades your whole body, mind. And then you stare in the clear and knowing quality of that awareness. You being inseparable, your mind inseparable from your guru's mind. So yeah, try to be wide awake, the mind is crisp, so you don't let your mind become dull. Pure awareness, crystal clear. And if you have this feeling of watching the awareness in front of you, try to merge the subjective and the objective awareness. You're not looking at awareness, you are awareness. One image Milarepa gives is the image of a big boat on the sea where there are tiny little waves like ripple the surface. So the big boat is not affected at all by these little waves. It doesn't shake him at all. So same thing, the deep silence of your awareness is unaffected by the little ripple of thoughts. You're just this heavy silence of stillness, of pure awareness. Now, if you can, imagine it in an age of pleasurable sensation, a feeling of bliss, either physical or mental. And then you focus on the blissful quality of awareness, or the pleasurable sensation of awareness. Now, within that experience, you observe your sense of I. You might have blocked it due to your concentration. Or there can be a general sense of I, of being the awareness. Then within that, sometimes the sense of I becomes stronger, having some kind of independence So while being in meditative absorption on pure awareness, you observe this sense of I. And you try to see where it is located, what in the body or in the mind or outside. And when you let this sense of I appear and look for it, it's a little bit like a mirage. If you don't inquire, it appears to be water there. If you don't inquire, there appears to be this inherent I there. And then when you look more closely where it could be in the body, mind, or outside, it vanishes. So you try to stay in this experience of having vanished, the inherent I having vanished. It's not there. And then when you come out of that absorption, you realize I is merely imputed on that awareness. And then you repeat the process. You stay calmly on the pure, clear nature of the mind. And you let the inherent I bubble up. And again, you look for it. And then you rest on this non-finding of the inherent I. And when you lose it, again, you realize that the I is merely labeled. There's no I in the body, in the mind. I is merely imputed. By the merit of this virtue, may I become a Buddha and lead all living beings into that enlightenment state. May the precious Bodhicitta, not yet born, arise and grow, and may that born not decline, but increase more and more. In the snowy mountain paradise, you're the source of all happiness and good. Powerful Tenzin Gyatso Chenrezig, please remain until samsara ends. Savior of the snowlands, teachings and being, you clarify the path that unifies emptiness and compassion. Lotus holder Tenzin Gyatso, may all your wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. Fearless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious one, Shravaka and Pratika Buddha, victorious Losang father and son, along with the lineage master, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtues and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teaching, through explanation and practice, you wore the armors of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable, venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teaching, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge. And for mother living beings, you suddenly depart to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great waves of Bodhicitta of the children of the victorious one, may the smile of a reincarnation is swiftly being in glory for fortunate disciples. All right. So I hope next week we go a little bit deeper into, this time I explained a little bit more, and next time we'll meditate more on these three sense of I, how the I appear in these three ways in our experience. And we try to go to this inner space of space-like meditation into emptiness, like that. So slowly, we make a little taste. We have a little, hopefully a little taste of things.
Thank you, Venerable.
Well, thank you to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Venerable.
Thank you, Venerable.
Thank you.
Thank you, Venerable.
I think it's
Thank you,
beautiful.
Venerable.
It's beautiful
you,
to
Venerable
meditate all
René.
together. It's
Oh,
beautiful
thank
we
you.
all meditate
It
together.
is.
Yeah. Okay.
Venerable René, can I ask you a question?
Sure, Scott. Yeah. So the people which have to go, please go. Goodbye. Yes, Scott.
Yeah, so this approach of meditating on the three senses of I, the conventional I, the inherent I, and the merely labeled I. I was talking to a Dharma friend about it. I love the approach, by the way, and I really appreciate your teaching it to us. I was talking to a Dharma friend about it, and they were asking me for if there were some textual reference, like Lama Tsongkhapa or some other commentary that talks about the three senses of I in this way. Oh,
there's plenty of text. There's plenty. So, for example, I'm just reading the A Lamp So Bright. So there's the Gelug Kagyu Tradition of Mahamudra by Panchen Losang Chogi Gyaltsen. So it's there in the auto commentary. Right, but there are it's in many other texts that you find these three senses of I. It doesn't come to my mind now like that, but I think in the Lamrim Chemo you have it, and in many of Lama Tsongkhapa's writing.
Is in the Alexander Beresin, the Gelug Kagyu?
It must be, because it's also there is also the auto commentary in there.
Okay.
So it's not in the root text, it's in the auto commentary. Yeah. When it comes to the selflessness of, when he explains the selflessness of person.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anything else? If not, then goodbye. Have a nice week. Enjoy.
Thank you.